Hi guys, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be drawing Khazan from the game The First Berserker. If you have a character from the game, film, or franchise you'd like to see drawn, let me know in the comments below. Alright, let's get into it. Khazan is a Souls-like game which encourages a few playstyles with seemingly equal emphasis on dodging and parrying to avoid attacks. It has impressive visuals that sort of are of the cel-shaded variety, so it looks kind of like a anime or animated movie while you're playing it. It reminds me a little bit actually of A Scanner Darkly, if you've ever seen that movie. Anyway, it's just a good looking game that actually has a unique style that isn't done that often these days. A lot of games really just kind of go for realism and don't have a true art style, and I respect Khazan for going for that. As far as the drawing goes here, I kind of tried to simplify his face a bit to align with that vision or idea of kind of a semi-realistic animated character. Khazan himself has pretty long flowing hair of the blonde variety, and some significant scarring kind of the supernatural variety that runs up his face and kind of frames certain parts of his body like his arms, and that's all sort of related to the lore of the character. He was a general in the Pelos Empire, which is part of the Dungeon Fighter universe kind of lore, and so far as I understand it, this is sort of deviating from the lore of that universe and kind of an offshoot of the tale that had always been told there. But we're picking up our journey with Khazan after he's been exiled from the Empire by kind of the swindling, backstabbing Emperor himself. Khazan, along with his buddy, had just defeated a great dragon called Hismar, and we actually, as the game progresses, we fight some kin of Hismar. But upon defeating them, he was backstabbed and betrayed, and he was banished to the mountains. And whilst he's being transported through the mountains, an avalanche comes down, and we find ourselves with the opportunity to escape, and of course, we do so. So we end up traveling through the mountain range, battling other soldiers and kind of some mystical animals like yetis and things like that. And we kind of go on a warpath. A supernatural entity who's looking for a human vessel offers to join our body, basically, which turns us into a berserker, kind of a being hell-bent on vengeance, and is somewhat often used, a common trope in games, akin to, say, the Doomslayer in Doom, or there's plenty of other titles that have vengeance as the driving force. The game gives us some cool options to employ for combat. There's 3 weapon types, so kind of a dual-wielding sword-axe combo. There's a spear, which you kind of use in a pole-arms sort of dance, and then there's the big bonking type weapon, which all of them feel really gratifying to use, and I think they did an excellent job, the developers, of making all the types feel like it's worthwhile to learn and give each one of them a shot until we find something that suits our own playstyle. As for me, I have been playing with the giant greatsword, and I've been having a lot of fun. I feel a little guilty about it because at first I was using the demo weapons, which the demo weapons, I don't know if it's a bug or they changed up exactly their design philosophy, but the demo weapons have a higher scaling than the weapons that currently drop in the game. And so there's really no reason, even if you find a higher level weapon, to drop a level 10 or 13 demo weapon, so long as that scaling is what does the majority of the damage. And so by the time we got to kind of the second major boss, I opted to stop using demo weapons and see what exactly the challenge was about. And it's a challenging game for sure. I don't know that it's as hard as people claim so far, but I've only defeated 2 major bosses. I guess 3 maybe if you count. This is kind of a Spectre version of one of the bosses you fight again, but it effectively plays out the same. So if you spent any time mastering that boss, then you'll kind of know what to do. This is kind of a pose I thought up or wanted to draw that I felt like fit a more of a look you might see in an animated movie or game. Kind of a somewhat cinematic side profile shot where we see his pretty large musculature. He's not necessarily intensely large, but he's definitely an augmented human, which makes sense for all the battles we're fighting in the game. He needs to be, he's wielding a sword that's taller than himself and swinging it around pretty easily, so he's got to be pretty strong. The game obviously takes a lot of inspiration from kind of we'll say the Souls-like genre. The leveling, the safe areas. This game has a hub even you go back to, kind of reminiscent of, we'll say, the Round Table in Elden Ring. This area needs to be popping out quite a bit. It needs shape for it to be the shoulder. There's some of that flowing scar up here, because Khazan, as part of his torture in exile, had his tendons and his forearms cut out, and the blood in a sort of supernatural way has gone up his body and kind of created some cool designs. And I once again tried to simplify those for that animated look. We'll see how successful I am. I haven't drawn I always go for realism when I'm drawing. And for this I just wanted to, again, really simplify it and just see if we caught the likeness of the character as he appears in game or in cutscene, as opposed to a full-on realistic take on him. You said that before, the game's pretty hard, but I feel the parry window is actually really generous when compared to, say, Sekiro or Lies of P. Lies of P parry window feels very small, and so having played that game a lot and then coming and playing this, I think the parry window fits in a really nice space of requiring skill, but not necessarily to a frustrating degree. It more just feels and looks good once you get in the rhythm. The fights feel a lot like a dance and a balancing act between your efforts of mitigating damage and then trying to output it back And there's some really cool skills that encourage us to not just wait our turn to fight, but to take the fight to them, the bosses particularly. And I mean, you can kind of start burying them at certain points if you've mastered a couple of the abilities, and it feels really gratifying. The challenge in the game seems to come from largely, which is maybe why people get frustrated, that healing is pretty scarce, both in quantity of heals, and I think more than that even, in how much the healing does. I don't think it offers a lot of recovery, and so you always just feel kind of hamstrung by your pots. And I think that's probably where a lot of people's frustrations come from, which is understandable. Because the fights themselves are pretty long dances. A lot of times in other Souls-like games, you do enough damage that if you know what you're doing, by the time you fail that boss enough, by the time you're going to beat them, oftentimes it's a pretty quick endeavor. But even when I know what I'm doing, by the time I've learned a boss in Khazan, I still spend 7-10 minutes, and that's kind of a long time to ask for high-level performance. So that's where I think the challenge of the game comes from, is it's largely the scarcity around heals. And that it disrupts some people the wrong way, I'm sure. Feels kind of artificially challenging in that respect on occasion. Like you're just hamstrung because your pot does 35% health or whatever it feels like it does. And I was really excited to get the game, and so of course I pre-ordered it so I could play a few days early. And naturally, I didn't really play a few days early. I kind of ran out of time, and yeah, didn't end up doing that. I think his nose looks a little funny. Maybe. I need to see it from. Try and lean back. Yeah, it's just flat out. Looks too wide. But maybe there's some ways I can fudge it and make it look okay. I might have to change that. It kind of, it's not looking right. This should probably also come out here. The problem is there's some graphite here, which is limiting my ability to get some pencil strokes down. What I'm really hoping goes well is the hair here, kind of long and flowing, and gave some really large lats here too. Because why not? I see a lot of people complaining about a boss called the Viper, and he was definitely tough. I fought him after the nerf. I didn't make it to him in time before they nerfed him. But I think most of my time on Viper came from trying to master a particular trick, just so it'd benefit me in the future, because I didn't mind doing the boss fight. I made it to a second phase in my third effort, which I don't think I'm amazing at these games or anything, but I was content with that. And I kept trying to plug away at it till I figured out the deflect mechanic, which is definitely a challenging mechanic. Requires a little bit more preemptive forethought than just the parry mechanic, but it gives you a really big window to land some damage on them, and so it seemed necessary, or important at least, to learn, and so I did. I didn't mind continually fighting the Viper and using that boss as a lesson to learn how that mechanic worked on, and I had fun the entire time. Same with the next boss after that. He's kind of like he holds a weird place in the game's story as a creature that for some reason played with children and they loved him. And over the course of whatever happened there, he kind of goes mad, and of course we come in at the right time and fight him. And that's also a really fun fight. The rhythm and dance of that one feels really good and strong. You can almost just keep attacking, and by the time you're done with the attack, throw up a block. And it just works so well. And it feels really gratifying. By the time you're done with the fight, once you do, in fact, get it done, it's largely going to look like a very flashy, cool thing you just pulled off if you watch back your replay. And the game has those moments where you just realize that by the time you're going to defeat your enemy, you're going to look good doing it by virtue of the game mechanics. And I can't always say that for other Souls games, including From Software games. A lot of times you're able to beat the boss without truly mastering the enemy you're fighting. And because of the health situation that we discussed earlier, you do kind of end up mostly mastering all the moves the boss has to offer. And you're just trying to survive a few mistakes you make if you can't put together a perfect run, which I don't think you should have to put together a perfect run. But you make 4 mistakes, you're going to certainly use those 4 pots you have to heal based on the damage that the bosses do. Khazan himself as a character feels really good to use too. He's fast, strong, explosive. He moves around the playing field really nicely. He's able to be acrobatic. And his character design overall just looks really good. The flowing hair, I think, is a really nice look. And he said that it's the part, drawing-wise, I'm most looking forward to doing. The universe that Khazan comes from, Dungeon Fighter universe, I'm not really familiar with. I know it's a pretty old game and series. And so far as I understand, Khazan was an important character in that universe in terms of lore and history, but the game, I think, is played a good bit after the time in which he was doing stuff that mattered. And so I think this is kind of a reimagining or reinterpretation of his lore from that universe.
So far as I understand in the game, if you want to give yourself the best or easiest shot at beating it, number one, there's difficulty levels you can choose to adjust. I'm playing on normal and it feels plenty hard. I see a lot of people on the subreddit just telling people to switch to easy, as that feels what, in their minds or estimation, a lot of Souls games feel like.
And I haven't done that yet.
I haven't needed to, but if I get too frustrated with it, then I think that's probably what I'll do. There's too many fun games out there to spend too long on and just make you frustrated about your day. Said I had personally not been frustrated with the boss yet so badly that I want to be done, but I understand if people are. Alright, let's blast in a little bit of hair here. Let's shadow it. Hi guys, I thought I'd check back in now that I'm a little further along and kind of think I'm sorting out the hair a bit. Yeah, it's really going pretty fast at this point, except for the fact that my pencil's not really working in this area, probably because my forearm leaned against the page and made it kind of greasy or something. It's always really annoying when that happens. Get a few strands that go over his back here. Probably just leave it like that for the time being. Alright, I'm going to go back to working on some anatomy here, as opposed to just hair. So this is this trap here as it comes down towards shoulder. I need that part of the shoulder to be bright. This part right here needs to be really helping us give the shoulder shape. Maybe a little bit tone relief in here too. I think that's helping. I kind of like leaving the texture like this sometimes, so it looks like really corded up muscle. That's what I really love about drawing with the white charcoal, is it just has so much texture that you get to see and play off of when you're moving along and drawing. And so I think I'm largely going to keep that texture, just kind of blend it a little bit. Can use a little bit more through here. So we want to carry this same value in a way that adds a sense of shape to the body. This would probably be, if we think about our shoulder and where the shoulder blade is, this is probably going to be a bit of a high spot here. I'm going to do a bit of a rim highlight here on the very edge of his frame. and I'll knock it down a touch. And I'm going to move it in a way that kind of connects right here, but naturally leaves it darker because I didn't put any tone there. Let's take a little bit more through there. Overall, I think it's actually looking kind of cool. It's not as detailed for a face as I would usually do, but I think it's sort of working in the way that I was intending for it to just look like the character themselves. From the game, not worry too much about fine detail. I tried to add a bit of anatomy in the area that's dark from the blood, but I didn't want to take it too far. Carry this shadow down a little bit more. Separate that Latin. This should also come down like this for that oblique shape. So we're kind of just going down and dirty here to get it done really quickly. I have a little bit of a robe drawn here. Alright, I kind of think that's going to do it for now. Thanks for watching. I said I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.